Welcome to another episode of the MEGIN Spotlight series. Today we are delighted to welcome back Kate Cooper. You may remember Kate from an earlier Spotlight episode with Dr. Malik. Kate Cooper is the mother of a daughter who achieved seizure freedom following epilepsy surgery at the age of 17, through a combination of methods and tools, including MEG. Hello, Kate.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a bit about your daughter's epilepsy journey? At what age was she diagnosed and what type of epilepsy did she have?
Sure. My daughter, Virginia, was diagnosed with epilepsy at 17 months. She had partial complex seizures that remained pretty much the same for the entire 17 years that she had them, or 16 years, I guess. They were idiopathic, so they had no known cause, which is the case with a lot of people with epilepsy. And at the time when she was first diagnosed, we were told that about 75% of kids outgrow epilepsy. So we were hopeful that she would, but ultimately she didn't. Her seizures tended to occur in clusters. So at the very worst, she was having 40 to 60 a day as a toddler. And then right before she had brain surgery at 17, she was having about 10 a week.
Okay, thank you. Wow. How did you select an epilepsy care team for your daughter?
That was a long journey. In the beginning, we just saw the neurologist associated with the hospital where she was first diagnosed, but candidly, didn't develop a very good relationship with him. He wasn't a great listener. So we switched to another local hospital and saw a doctor there. And that went pretty well for a while. But when we weren't getting anywhere with the medication, we decided to seek a second opinion. So we ended up traveling to a hospital about an hour away and found that we had a much better communication style and relationship with that doctor there. So we stuck with him for a very long time. And then actually went back to the second hospital again later when Virginia was a teenager and traveling meant missing school for her and missing work for me. We went back. So all that to say, our needs changed over the years. And so we chose different caregivers over that time. If you talk to 10 neurologists, they'll say 10 different things. So I really encourage people to, find a person that they can have a good working relationship with, and that's who they should see. And that might change over time.
Over the years, what was your daughter's epilepsy care plan? I mean, did this involve anti-epileptic medications? Did the plan evolve over time? How did this come about?
Yeah, so it definitely involved anti-epileptic medications, and it definitely involved over time. For many of those years that she struggled with seizures, we were taking multiple medications, which was especially hard when she was young and couldn't swallow pills. We were dealing with liquid prescriptions. We eventually got to where she was just taking one medication. But again, even with that, we didn't achieve seizure control. We were always, as caregivers, her father and I were always trying to strike the balance between, seizure control and side effects. And that can be a really hard balance to strike. At one point, we also tried the ketogenic diet, but we were unsuccessful. We tried that when she was about 12. And my understanding from the research is that it works better with younger kids. So perhaps we tried it a little bit late, but her treatment plan, included, therapeutic diet, medications, and then ultimately surgery. But we tried lots of different things.
Did anyone ever talk to you about brain surgery, and at what age was this discussed? I mean, ultimately, what made you decide that surgery was the way forward for your daughter's epilepsy?
Yeah, so when Virginia was about 9 years old, it became pretty apparent to us that she wasn't going to outgrow the epilepsy. She had already failed probably 4 or 5 medicines at that point. And so that's when our neurologist suggested that we pull in a neurosurgeon for a consult about brain surgery. So at that point, for me, I really found it helpful to think about like an ear tube analogy. So a lot of small children get ear infections all the time, and they take antibiotics, and eventually the antibiotics don't work, and you do a simple surgery, and that solves the problem and reduces the risk of the antibiotics. That's how I started thinking about brain surgery. Basically, the medicine wasn't helping at all. We had to move on to the next thing. So those two doctors, the neurosurgeon working in conjunction with our neurologist, sent us basically all around the United States, pursuing all sorts of different imaging. And the idea was that if we could find the focal point, if we could find the spot where her seizures came from, we could surgically remove it.
So over this time then, were any neuroimaging scans conducted and then if so, which ones?
So we had so many, I struggle to remember them all, but I know we did MRIs, we did functional MRIs, we did CAT scans, PET scans, SPECT scans, and I believe we even did an MEG at this time, but this was about 2011. So the imaging wasn't as sophisticated as it is now, and we weren't able to find the focal point.
Can you tell us how you discovered MEG, even though you may have come across it before, but you weren't quite realizing it, I guess, at the time?
Yeah, so I discovered MEG the second time around in kind of a roundabout way. I actually discovered it through a doctor. I came across Dr. Scott Perry on Twitter, and I just really liked the way he talked. He seemed to be a real problem solver. He seemed to be really empathetic toward his patients, and he had a sense of humor. And I started discussions with him, and he eventually asked us to come see him in Texas. And while we were there, they enrolled Virginia in a research study that was using MEG in conjunction with high density EEG. And that's how we discovered it the second time around.
That's incredible. How did you find a place then, obviously, who could conduct an MEG scan? I mean, what was your daughter's experience of having an MEG scan as well? So, you know, that whole experience of going to Texas, I guess.
Yeah, so we didn't know much about it before we went in. And like I said, the team there suggested enrolling her in this research project. So we weren't actually looking for an MEG as much as we were a second opinion, but the second opinion luckily involved the MEG. In February of 2020, Virginia's neurologist had suggested a surgical EEG or an IEEG, I think they're also called. They actually drill holes into the skull and implant leads right in the brain. And when they did that, they could not identify the focal point, even though, you know, they drilled these 20 holes. So the theory was that the seizures were coming from her frontal lobe, a really thick part of the brain behind a thick part of the skull, and that was why we couldn't find them. So when we traveled to Texas, you know, the MEG was a way for us to test that theory, to see if we could get any closer to seeing if there might be a lesion or where that focal point might be. The hospital that conducted the first surgical EEG said that surgery wasn't an option, and they suggested implanting a deep brain stimulator. I really liked the idea of surgery. So before I gave up on that, I wanted one more person kind of to confirm that it just wasn't going to be possible. So again, that's the journey that eventually led me to Scott Perry in Texas. So I contacted his office, explained our situation. He agreed to see her and enroll her in this study. Once we were there, the experience itself was really simple. It's not very different from other imaging tests that our daughter had done before. We sleep deprived her the night before in order to try to induce seizures. You know, you want to actually capture the seizure to do the study and have it be most effective. So she was extremely tired. She went into the special little room, laid down, they covered her in blankets and got her comfy, and she fell asleep and thankfully had a seizure. And that's what helped us get to being able to do surgery.
That's an incredible story. So how did the data then from your daughter's MEG scan inform the decision-making process when they decided to move forward with brain surgery? What did they say to you, I guess, afterwards?
So we didn't get results for a few weeks, but when we did get results, it was basically this whole extra set of data, right? I mentioned she'd already had an SEEG at another hospital. We'd already drilled all these holes, so we knew where she wasn't having seizures. What the MEG scan enabled us to do was to look at a different part of her brain and see if they were there. Like there was an area that the first SEEG had missed. Because a stereo EEG is invasive, you know, they can only get so close to certain parts of the brain and veins and that sort of stuff. So the MEG as a non-invasive procedure allowed us to see other parts of the brain. So the researchers basically took the data from the MEG. She was also wearing a high density EEG. She was doing a high density EEG at the same time. So they take both of those sets of data and then they overlay them on a map of her brain that they basically create from an MRI. And then they're able to look at the electrical activity and see where those dipole clusters are for that electrical activity. And that's what told them, okay, this is where the seizure is coming from. So at that point, they know where the seizures are coming from in general, but then they had to do another stereo EEG to really pinpoint the exact location. But because we had the MEG, we didn't have to drill 20 holes in her head again. This time we could just do 7, much simpler, much shorter surgery because we had localized it that much. So those MEG findings proved pivotal in like the second SEEG and then ultimately her laser ablation as well.
Post-surgery then, let's talk about that. What was the recovery process like? Was your child able to come off epilepsy drugs following the surgery then?
So recovery was actually surprisingly simple. The type of surgery that Virginia had is called a laser ablation, and it's minimally invasive. They basically drill 2 small holes in her skull and then insert a fiber optic cable with a laser at the end of it. And then as they pull that fiber optic cable up and away, the laser burns away the lesion in her brain to stop the seizures. So recovery was relatively simple. She had surgery on December 2nd. She was discharged on December 3rd, and we flew back home on December 4th. She was tired, but she was actually back in school just a few days later. And she actually took a college entrance exam just a week later. Interestingly, she did so much better on that exam than she had previously. And her neurologist strongly believes that was because she wasn't having seizure activity in her brain, interrupting her thought process all the time. So we saw a difference cognitively almost right away. She wasn't able to go off the medication right away. We started a weaning process that took quite a few months. But our goal all along was to get her off the medication. And it's kind of important to talk about why. So a lot of people who have epilepsy suffer from cognitive and memory impairments. It's probably a combination of the seizures themselves, side effects from the medicine, and maybe even some brain damage from the epilepsy. It's hard to tell exactly why it happens. But for our daughter and for many people with epilepsy, they just struggle to remember to take the medication. So for our daughter, that was a huge hurdle for her to overcome in order to live independently. So what brain surgery did was not only stop the seizures, but eliminate that obstacle that she had because of memory impairment and allow her to live a lot more independently than she otherwise could have.
It must have been incredible for her to not have seizures anymore, that feeling of not having them.
It took a while for it to set in. I mean, we were kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop for a little while, but at first it was a few days, then it was a few weeks. And now it's been more than 15 months since she had a seizure.
Amazing. So what would you say is the one lesson you want people to learn from your daughter's situation, or what's the biggest takeaway, I guess, from your daughter's story?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I feel really, really strongly about this. If you're suffering from uncontrolled seizures, or someone you love is, and they have failed 2 or 3 drugs, it's really time to start thinking about brain surgery. I would really encourage people not to wait as long as we typically have. Again, it's the debilitating side effects, the brain damage. There are so many complications if you let seizures continue. And brain surgery and the tests that we use for surgery planning, the MEGs, the SEEGs, all those things have come so far in about the last 10 years. The cloud has made it possible for us to collect and analyze so much more data than we ever could before. And the imaging tests, MEG, high density EEG, all these things are so much less invasive that surgery just isn't what it used to be. The surgery itself is so much less invasive in many cases. It's less risky, there's less recovery time. You don't have to have a craniotomy anymore, in a lot of cases anyway, because we can pinpoint, through these tools, we can pinpoint where the lesion or deformity is or whatever, and that makes the surgery itself so much easier. Virginia, for instance, when she had her brain surgery, she didn't even have to shave her head. She came out of surgery with 2 little spots that looked like pimples on her scalp, and that's all. So I just encourage people to really rethink surgery, and to consider it much sooner, to at least evaluate whether or not it's an option.
So we know that you've also been an advocate for epilepsy awareness and supporting the advancement of epilepsy treatments. So can you tell our audience what groups you're involved with and why you decided to work with these groups?
Sure. I've done a little bit of work with the Epilepsy Foundation, mostly sharing our story and serving as a resource for other caregivers. But predominantly, I've focused my time and effort on CURE, which stands for Citizens United for Research in Epilepsy. And I chose CURE because in the United States anyway, epilepsy is just tragically underfunded. The research for epilepsy is tragically underfunded. And that's the complete focus of CURE. They really focus on private funding for research projects that specifically focus on stopping seizures. So I loved that they have that really clear laser focus and that they give grants, every year and sponsor this kind of research. So I've worked with them serving on committees, raising funds, and quite frankly, just benefited from support from that group as well. In fact, I think it was through CURE that I ended up finding Dr. Perry and his group, which led me, to the MEG and ultimately to Virginia Surgery. It was one of those like Twitter algorithm things. I think I follow someone on CURE who followed him, and that's how I ended up finding him and began that conversation. So really this whole story, comes back to CURE in a way. So I continue to work with them and support them, and they're a great organization. I encourage people to look them up.
Thank you, Kate, for your time today. I mean, this has been so informative for our audience. It's a complete honor for us to be able to share insights into MEG with you from your point of view and brain surgery from the perspective of a parent and a caregiver to a child with epilepsy, I guess. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to tell a happy story.
Thank you.